Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining our Evolve 365 Microsoft Tips and Tricks session today. We wanted to start this weekly series to give you some simple and easy tips that you can go back to your desk and quickly implement. We know your time is valuable, so we'll keep sessions to no more than 30 minutes, sometimes even less. And we also push out the topics monthly, so you just have to sign up once for the series instead of 4 or 5 times. If you ever miss out on a session, you can find the recordings on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/users/planettechnology. So a little about myself. I'm Tanya Kaiser, your host for today. I have more than 15 years experience with project management across multiple industries, including technology, legal, nonprofit, and construction. I'm also a longtime Microsoft geek and a SharePoint nerd. One of the things that I enjoy the most is helping people learn a new skill with a familiar tool or some completely different that they've never used before. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. So a little about Planet Technologies. Planet has been providing expert support in the Microsoft world for over 18 years. We offer full services for the entire Microsoft Cloud and Productivity Suite, including advisory, deployment, and training services, mobile application development and solutions, and strategic business consulting, including technology, compliance, and security guidance. So today we're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, and we're going to talk about SharePoint and Office 365 third-party tools. So far in our series, we focused on strictly the out-of-the-box components, either in Office 365, Office, or SharePoint. But sometimes you're trying to accomplish something with SharePoint or Office, and you just need another tool to help you. So today I'm going to show you some of my favorite tools that I use pretty much every day. Now, we say third-party tools because these are something that Microsoft does not provide. Doesn't mean anything bad, just means they're coming from outside of that organization. So I'm going to jump right into it. And all of the tools that I'm going to talk about today, if they're not free, they have a low cost and they also have a free trial. So these are tools that will be easily accessible to either people who are running SharePoint or Office 365 or just your typical end users who may need to produce some documentation. So one of the first tools that I'm going to discuss is Syncfusion Metro Studio. So what this is a very light app that lets you create square tiles. Now, they include thousands upon thousands of icons already in their application. I think on their website they had over 7,000 icons. So if there's an icon in this app that you're not finding, I would really say, do you really need that icon? They've got the typical color palette tool, but they also have the eyedropper where if you want to match your icon or your tile to a very specific document or app, you can use that eyedropper to go in and match that color. You go to their website, Syncfusion, I've got the link there, but you almost need to search for Metro Studio because if you were to look at their product page, you wouldn't see it listed by itself. This is a free app, so we're starting off with a brand new free one. You provide your email and some basic info, and I can attest that they send very, very few emails. So this isn't the application where you go out, you have to give up your name and email, and then they're never going to stop emailing you, and you get 10 emails a day. I think I average maybe 1 or 2 emails from them a month. If they have a new product coming out, they may be a little bit more, but they're very, very light on the communication, which is always a great thing. If you're restricted in your environment on what you can download onto your system, the alternative for creating those tiles that you see on your Windows Start screen or in SharePoint would be to use one of the other Office applications, whether it's PowerPoint or Word or a completely separate Adobe Creative Suite, photo editing software, and you would build up that tile by creating a text box, putting in an image, and then saving that as a picture. And I've shown how to do that in PowerPoint in one of my past sessions. But if you don't have limitations on what you can download, Metro Studio is a great app to go ahead and download that. So I'm going to switch over to my demo, and I'm going to show you really quickly what it looks like. So if I go to my Start button, I've just got it hanging out here on my Start button. Metro Studio. I pin that to my Start because I use it pretty often, but when you open up the application, this is what you see. Now you can see that you have a ton of icon categories here, everything from wildlife to applications, and if I scroll through applications, you can see that there's all kinds of different icons in here. Now you're seeing black and white right now, but I'm going to show you really quickly how you can come in and change the colors. And this is one of the reasons that I always go back to the Metro Studio application. One, it's free, so that's always a great thing. But they have these built-in icons, so I no longer have to go out to the internet and search for an icon. If I want to come in here and maybe on my SharePoint site I'm creating some promoted tiles and I'm giving people direct links where they can go download something and maybe maybe I have a training series on Excel. I can come in here and I can get all the Excel icons, and you can see they have different versions, so the older and newer versions. without having to go out to the internet and hope that the icon that I copied off of some Google search isn't pixelated or isn't going to give me something else. They have tons and tons of built-in icons. Um, you know, if you wanted to put something in there weather-related, anything that you can come in and search on, they really do have thousands upon thousands of icons in here, so you're bound to find something. Now, the way that you build projects in this is you can see in the lower left-hand corner, it says create a new project. So I can click on that and then just type in a name. And then once I've got my project there, any icon that I want to use, I just drag and drop. So if I just find an icon I want to use, I drag it over to that folder, and I can keep scrolling down. Maybe we have some, you know, data icons that we want to talk about, and it's really whatever icon you want. So you can just go through, drag and drop them. You know, we've got a couple of file boxes. In the past, when I've used these for SharePoint sites, we've done things like, you know, open a new request, have a plus sign, you know, archive a request, those actions that users would take. And we would use that promoted links app within SharePoint to build out the menu for the users just to give them a little bit more navigation. So you can keep clicking through these. You know, if we wanted to put one in for the Apple Store, maybe we're building out a SharePoint help site and we're directing users where they can find instructions on their mobile devices. Once you have your icons in there, you just hit the edit button. And then you're faced with your icons. So you can see that they're all selected right now. And they really, you know, are pretty small. But then you've got this basic menu. I can come in here and I can adjust the padding on the size of the icon. If I want to give it more space or less, I can drag and drop that. And then I also mentioned this eyedropper. So I can give it a background color. I can come in here and use the color palette tool or use the hex number. But I also have my eyedropper. So if I want to take that eyedropper anywhere onto my secondary screen and select a color, let me go back to my app really quickly, I can pull that from any other application. So you can see it's pretty fine-tuned if I wanted to match a color. And you can do that for all of them because I have all of them selected. But maybe I just wanted to have a specific color on one of them and I wanted to highlight that button. And you can also do the same thing for the icon color itself as well. So if I wanted to come in here and make that really garish and, you know, have a red and blue together, you can definitely do that. Now, if I completely mess up and I'm not happy with those, you can just reset them all one by one, or again, come in and select them all and do a reset. Once you're happy with your icon size and the colors, then you just come in and you export them out. I usually just put them on my desktop and you can pick them as a PNG file, but you see you also have other files there as well. Now, one of the great things about this, if you're doing a lot of websites, is that they can also give you the CSS snippets for these as well. So purely from an icon point, I just usually export them as a PNG. You can then upload them to your SharePoint site. You can also use these in other documents if you're creating documentation and you want to use these square tiles and icons. They work great for Word documents, great in PowerPoint presentations. So it's a really great tool, but they also have the sprite and the code function as well. So this is pretty much all there is to it. You come in, you pick your icons, you can again edit them so they're all nice and uniform, you know, all together, or if you wanted to change them individually, you can select one at a time. It's pretty basic, you know, you're not going to be able to come in and rework a lot of the icons. I know you can come in and do that on the dev side, but it's a great light app to just build out your icons for your SharePoint site or other sites. And really, they do have thousands upon thousands of icons. So if it's not in here, I'd wonder, you know, do you really need it? I've used this for a while. I know a lot of SharePoint consultants who use this. Again, they kind of have it all ready to go. So whatever kind of intranet or SharePoint site you're building, this is a great place to come and get your icons. So I'm going to go back to my presentation. And again, that one was Syncfusion Metro Studio. It's a free app. You can export, pick those colors, so great to use that. The workaround would be to use PowerPoint or some other app to build up those tiles. So the next one that I want to show you is from TechSmith, and this is called Snagit. So this is a screen clipping tool. Right away people say, you know, why do I need a screen clipping tool? I can use print screen, I can use the built-in snipping tool, but this one has a lot of built-in tools. You can add call-outs, highlights, numbering. You can blur parts of a screen if you need to, redact certain information. You can save this to your clipboard and paste it into things. You can also save the images as themselves, and it also lets you record apps as well. So it's really more than a screen clipping tool. That's kind of a misnomer because it's so robust, but it has a lot of other features. So if you have to create any documentation, whether you're somebody who's managing SharePoint or you just happen to be a person who, is creating documentation for your team. Maybe when a new person comes into your group, you want to create some documentation for them. Creating screenshots and numbering those and doing step-by-steps is more painful than it should be. This Snagit tool definitely helps in that. So this one is available through TechSmith. They also make Camtasia. Camtasia is a full suite of software recording, so you can record through Snagit, but if you needed to add call-outs on the screen of your video recording, zoom in, blur, Camtasia can do that. But Snagit's pretty powerful on the recording front on its own. So Snagit is $49.95 per user, and that allows the user to install it on 2 different machines. So on myself, I have it on my Surface Pro 3, which is my day-to-day work machine, and then I also have it on my Dell Latitude, which is my demo and my work laptop. They do have a trial version, so everything that I'm showing today, if it has a paid cost, you're also going to be able to go out and try it for 15 days in the case of Snagit. And that's a great trial period. You can download it pretty quickly. It installs right away. I'm going to show you the interface in just a little bit and all the different tools. But if you're any person who needs to create screenshots on a regular basis, this is a great tool to have, whether you're doing training materials or, like I said, just day-to-day stuff that you're wanting to document. Now the alternatives I mentioned, you can use the built-in snipping tool that's built in into all Windows versions. There is a Microsoft Garage project beta out there called Snip. That's a much lighter Snip version. And of course the print screen button. And then you would add, all of those boxes and arrows with something like Office or Outlook or Word. For recording on Windows 10, there's the Game app. You can use the Windows key and G to trigger that to go and record. There's really not a built-in recording function that works really, really well. So we're going to take a look at Snagit. Now, the interesting thing about Snagit is that the provider also gives you all these resources. So this is their website. You can see you can come in here, look at the overview and the resources. On the resources tab, they give you all these stamps and Windows output. So when I say it's powerful, they give you all these stamps if you think of, another kind of call out that you can paste over your screenshot. But what's really interesting is they give you all these Windows outputs as well. So you can put these profiles into that program if you always want to send something to Word, if you always want to send something to Excel. You can see there's some other sites here. And then they've got additional help for profiles and then for the business. So my version of Snagit, it's on my Windows start bar, of course, but it always hangs out here at the top of my screen. So it's always accessible to me. Now I can come and modify those preferences in the Preferences menu. We've got that ever popular gear, which means it's a settings menu. And you can select whether you want it to run when Windows starts, if you want it to stay there at the top or not, or if you just want to pull it from the start bar. So I'm actually going to go over to my PowerPoint, the back end of it. And if I was working on a PowerPoint and I wanted to come in here and capture an image, I can have this menu, and you can see I can scroll back and forth through the menu. I can just click image and then come in, and it's going to tell me, since this is a new install, it's going to give you some instruction, and you just click wherever you want to highlight that. So if I want to highlight the whole screen, maybe I just want to do the ribbon right now, and then it's going to open up its editing screen. And this is where the really powerful part comes in. One, it does let me select any part of the screen. That's fine. If I use print screen, I can then crop that. But the great part about Snagit is that I have all these different callouts in here. So if I wanted to come in and say highlight a particular button on my menu, I can say present online, and then I can still come in and add a box around that if I want to make sure that they're seeing exactly what I'm showing them. And I can move that around and adjust it. I can increase the width on it if I wanted to do any formatting for that. So it's a pretty robust menu. You can see I've got all these different options, and these are going to look familiar for anyone who's done any kind of adding in Office, whether it's Word, PowerPoint, even within Outlook. These are very similar to the draw menus. Now each of these I can move around, so I don't have to be stuck with them on the side. But then I also have things like numbering. So if I wanted to come in and say, step 1 is click File, step 2 is click Present Online, maybe step 3 is resume slideshow, I can come in and build out a menu for those people. And if I wanted to come in and reorder those or delete them, I can simply do that. I also talked about blurring. So on the image ribbon, you can see that we've got cutout and trim. Cutout sounds exactly like what it is. Maybe there's only one part of the ribbon that I want to show, and I don't really want to show the other part. And I can come in here and adjust that however I want. If I want to cut out even more of it, I can do that same thing. So let me get rid of that one really quickly. So there's a lot of powerful tools within this menu that you wouldn't have access to just by using print screen or one of the other built-in. The whole version of Snagit is to do this kind of documentation. I also mentioned blur. So blur is one that, if we really, really need to redact some info, I can come in here and I can also control how blurry something is. Maybe I didn't want them to see that menu at all. You can see I can pixelate this, or I can smooth it out, and I can choose, how much exactly I want that blurred. So this is a great way if you're showing somebody something in an email and you don't have a demo account that you can use, so you're having to show your own Outlook inbox, you can come in here and show them the steps on the menu, but then blur out the information that you don't want them to see. Now once I'm done with all this editing, I can just come up to the Share ribbon, click Clipboard. That'll put it on my clipboard, and I can then paste it into an application. But you can also see I can send it to Word, Excel, OneNote. If I wanted to do screencast, if I do happen to have Camtasia, I can send that to Camtasia. So saying it's a screen clipping tool is, again, a bit of a misnomer. It's so much more powerful than that. You can also see down here at the bottom I've got a built-in video where they're already showing me about recording. But very, very powerful tool. I use this one quite a bit for doing documentation, whether it's for a customer or our own internal references. I also love the fact that I can come into the library and see all of the recent things that I've snipped. So again, on my demo account, you're only going to see one. But if I know that I did a site maybe 2 weeks ago and I just need to change a couple things, I can go back in, pull up that particular screen clipping, and then re-edit it again. So it saves a lot of time on that front as well. I mentioned some of the stamps. Stamps are items that are graphic. It's not a box. It's not an arrow. You've got a little bit more choices, and they have some that you can download. You can also purchase them. So again, these are just a little bit, simpler call-outs that you can place around if you don't want to just use the box and the arrow. So lots of different things that you can do with Snagit. And I'll go back to their website really quickly. I mentioned they have these other stamps that you can do, and then they also have a free trial as well. So this one, very, very similar to, excuse me, to the one that we just showed. It has a free trial for 15 days. It's $49.95 per user, but you can do it on 2 machines. I will also mention that if you are looking at Camtasia, if you want that full recording where you can do Zoom and everything in your recording as well, that you often get these in a bundle since they are made by the same company. But TechSmith Snagit, if you're doing any kind of documentation, that's a great tool to have there. Now the next one that I'm going to talk about, if you've been watching our tips and tricks sessions for a while, you've probably seen me use this, and this is called Squirrels is the name of the company. Reflector 2 is the actual app. And this is a wireless mirroring and streaming app. So that means that I can duplicate my mobile device, my iPhone, though it works on Android and Windows Phone as well, onto a separate screen. In my case, usually it's my computer screen. This is available again through the company called airsquirrels.com. It'll show up as squirrels on your receipt. This is $14.99 per install, so you can install it on one computer. It's not similar to Snagit, one user gets 2 installs. This is per install, so if you need it on 2 different PCs, you'd pay that twice. They do have a trial version that you can use for 7 days if you just want to see how it works. The trial version does have a watermark across the image. But again, if you're just trying it out or you want to use it for a quick demo to show to somebody, not a problem at all using that trial version because you still have all of the features. Now, one thing I will say about this is it is wireless, so you have to have a device that has the built-in AirPlay for iOS or Google Cast for Android. And I mention that because some older Android devices will not support Google Cast. So one of the reasons I haven't shown an Android device on our sessions is because I have an older Android tablet that doesn't have Google Cast. And the other thing to note is wireless. So you have to be on the same wireless network, both devices, the mobile device and the computer that you're broadcasting to, and on the same subnet. Usually not an issue for home networks and for some small networks, but if you have a large organization, you may run into that issue because you're on a different subnet. It just depends how your wireless network is configured. Now the alternative for this one is you would purchase a Lightning to HDMI adapter for iOS. Those cables are guaranteed pricier than $14.99, at least that I have found. We have one in our household that we use for our iPads, and we make sure we never lose that cable. For Android, I'm assuming there's a similar cable out there that's maybe lower cost, but again, it's not wireless. You're tied to that wherever that cable is. If I wanted to use this, I could, be projecting to a computer and be walking around with my iPhone, so it's a nice feature to have. And again, you've probably seen me use this, so I'm actually going to start this off by getting it going on my phone. You'll see it pop up in just a little bit here. This is the menu that you get on the phone. So if I'm looking at this from my phone, I would, use my bottom menu, and you can see there's the AirPlay description right there. And then once I'm connected, I can then browse through that menu within my phone. Now, there is a little preference button if I open up Reflector, and it gives me some options. So I can choose to change the layout of my phone so it mimics that actual phone. I happen to have a space gray phone, but if I wanted to pretend that it's a rose gold phone, I can do that. And then in our gear on our settings menu, we also have some preferences. I can change my broadcast name. Now, it may pick up my system name, but if I wanted to change that broadcast name to match, the training session that I'm giving, you can do that. You can make it be always on top. And then you also have some connection settings as well. You can record with this, so very much like Snagit, this is another app that you can do recordings with. So if you needed to do a quick recording for your users, how do they set up Outlook on their native iOS mail app? How do they set up Outlook on the Outlook mobile app? This is a great tool to do that, and it's going to show them exactly the interface that they're going to see. So this is another tool that's really, really useful for those users who are having to create some documentation. You've seen me use this by showing the Office apps, and there's no latency here, which is one thing that I really do love about this app. So if I wanted to come in here and open up Delve and I can start recording on this, it's really easy to get that going. Now you can see from here I can also right-click on it, and again I have the same menu item for the frame. I can scale the size, I can change the orientation, and then I have the same options, always on top or display. So very, very simple app on this one, but something that works really, really well. You can see I also have the record button there if I wanted to start recording. So not a whole lot to this, and this is one of the reasons I love these three different apps. When it comes to the Metro Studio and the tiles, it's pretty intuitive. You pick an icon, you can drag and drop the colors, drag and drop the padding. With the Reflector app, you connect, and it's all kind of contained in these few buttons. Really great. Snagit does have a bunch of buttons in there because of all the different add-ons that you can add, but once you get around all those menus, again, it's pretty simple. You click screenshot, then you start editing. So these are three different ones that I've really, really grown to use quite a bit. If I go back to my home screen here on the Reflector app, again, I can browse through any different setting on here, and if I wanted to record it, I could. If I wanted to come in and use Snagit to then do a screenshot capture of that phone, I can do that as well. So again, they work really, really well together. If I wanted to come in here and, highlight the settings button and tell them, this is the button that you're looking for, the settings. It may or may not be on your screen. I could even come in here and then highlight it even more and say, let's not put a red box around it, let's highlight it. I meant to click my highlight button there. So different things that you can do among these three different apps. I'll go back to Reflector. And if I wanted to eject this I can move this screen up and click off AirPlay and click mirroring, toggle that on and off, or I can just come into the app itself and click the eject button. So multiple ways I can do that within the Reflector app. And going back to Reflector, again, that one is $14.99 per install. I happen to have it only on my demo machine. But when I travel for my Surface Pro 3, it's not a big leap for me to pay for another install or just use the trial for that quick little trip. Now, I haven't tried to remove the install from one machine and put it on the other. I haven't tried that. I'm assuming you can since it's tied to the key. But again, another light app. Now, one that I did mention in our topic, but I'm actually not going to demo it today because I wanted to make sure we stayed under 30 minutes, is ShareGate. Now, this is a complete management and migration tool for SharePoint and Office 365. The other reason I didn't want to demo it in this session, it's getting a little bit into the admin world. This isn't something that a typical end user would really use unless you happen to have an organization where you have a team of one, and that happens in small and big organizations, and that team of one happened to be an end user who then somehow ended up being in charge of SharePoint, which has happened to me in previous roles. So this is really not something that somebody's going to go back to their desk and play around with. This is more in you're managing a large SharePoint site or a large Office 365 environment. You can go to ShareGate and you can get a free trial version. This is very, very much outside the cost of, a few dollars. So the full version, which has both management and migration, is just under $4,000, and the light version for migrations is just under $2,000. So migrations, again, you're not going to have a regular end user doing SharePoint migrations. But I will say, the alternatives for this tool are using things like PowerShell or one of the other competitor tools, Metalogix or AvePoint. So I didn't want to demo it when I was looking at my topic again this morning. This was outside the realm of end users. I may do this in a session in October. I think the ShareGate tool, I've used it on several really, really large SharePoint migrations from legacy SharePoint 2007 and 2010, bringing them over to SharePoint on-prem 2013, and then Office 365, migrating file shares onto SharePoint and vice versa, and it's well worth the money. It's one of the easiest tools out there for migrations. For management of SharePoint, you can pull all kinds of audit reports on it, see what information has been shared outside your Office 365 tenant. Maybe you were pretty sure that you locked it down, but this is one tool that you can use, and I use the management portion of ShareGate every day when I was managing SharePoint farms. So I included it in my topic. That's why I wanted to list it on the slide, but I don't want to demo it because that's getting a little bit deep into the weeds on admins. But if you are interested about ShareGate, let me know. We get no money from this. All of these things that I've displayed today are my own personal opinions. They're my favorite tools. I use Metro Studio, Snagit, and Reflector all the time. Snagit, I don't know how I could do my job daily. It would make it much, much harder. But ShareGate is one of those that's a little more on the admin side. So I may show it in October. If you're interested, feel free to send me an email on Twitter, LinkedIn, or just email me directly, and I'd be happy to put together a session on it. One of the things that we always talk about is, Office 365 is changing all the time. The tools that I showed today will allow you to go out and create your own documentation for your users. You can use Reflector in a training session, show them how the new updates are in the mobile apps. You can use Snagit to update your own training materials. But if you really don't want to go through those extra steps, we do have Evolve 365, which is a Planet Technology service, and it's a subscription-based help desk as a service for Microsoft Office 365. We also cover the Office applications and SharePoint in that, and we're always updating our content. All of our content is on demand and self-help. We have more than 25,000 videos across Office 365, SharePoint, and Office versions going back to 2007. So as you see updates come through on Office 365 that sometimes affect the client applications like Outlook or PowerPoint, we are updating our content. If you don't want to go out and be responsible for updating all the training materials, Evolve 365 is probably a good fit for you. Every Evolve 365 subscription comes with a dedicated Office 365 trusted advisor like myself, and we also have add-ons available for live phone support and vision and planning sessions as well. We do have a free trial site where you can go and sample some of our content. Again, we have more than 25,000 videos, but you'll find about 200 or so on the trial site. It'll give you a look and feel. You'll see how our content is. Most of our videos are 30 seconds to a minute long, so your users will find help immediately. They don't have to browse through hours and hours of links, on Google trying to find the right instructions for the right application. If you're interested in that free trial, you can go to freetrial.o365support.com. You can also visit our website, o365support.com, to learn more about Evolve 365. We also have some sample training videos there as well. And if you have questions, you can always send us an email at info@o365support.com. Now we are going to continue with our September Tips and Tricks series. Next week I'm going to be talking about Windows 10 features, and I am going to be talking about some of the built-in features that I mentioned today, like the built-in snipping tool and some of those problem step recorders. So if you're interested in seeing what those are, definitely come back next week and you'll have a good comparison of what third-party tools are available for purchase and then the built-in ones within Windows 10. Of course, you can always catch our past sessions on our Planet Technologies YouTube channel, and we still have space available at our first annual Office 365 for Government taking place in Washington, D.C. on October 6th. Registration for our Office 365 Summit is free, so you may want to go to that website, o365summit.com, to find out more information if you're interested in attending. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're coming in right at time. And again, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn or send me over an email. And I hope to see everyone online next week.